The smoke is still black. The Mavericks do not have a new general manager on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm going to get a city like that.
Dogs, all of us, all five.
You are Locked On Mavs.
Great, Wesley.
Your daily Dallas Mavericks podcast.
No one's dying.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network.
Still can't leave me alone.
Your team every day.
Gotta be born with it, dog blood.
You are Locked On the Dallas Mavericks. This is one of your co-hosts, Isaac Harris. I have been doing this alongside Nick Smith for 10 years now, covering the Mavs. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen of the day. Guys, go listen to Raphael and the crew over at Locked On NBA Big Board for your second listen of the day. And if you're not already signed up, make sure you sign up for our text program. It's our Locked On Mavs Insiders. We do Q&As, latest news, even when there were news earlier today on Wednesday. Shout out some updates on that. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Well, it's been a bit before we've talked about Nico Harrison, so let's do it. Man, it's like, can we go 2 weeks without talking about Nico Harrison? No, we cannot, because here we are again. We had kind of in consecutive order there on Twitter earlier on Wednesday, Mark Stein, Tim McMahon, reporting that Nico Harrison is making major changes in the medical staffing department for the Dallas Mavericks, as he is letting go of Keith Belton. We'll get to that in a second. But also firing Deon Calhoun, who has been with the team for 21 years and all of that. And so some of you might be saying, like, hey, who cares about medical staffs? Why is this news? All the things. Well, let me tell you why it is news. This is the same medical staff that Nico Harrison adamantly defended just 22 days ago. It was just 22 days ago, April 15th. I guess if you're listening to this on the 8th, it's 23 days ago. But it was April 15th in which he had the secret invite only, no cameras, all the stuff, round table, that's what they called it, with select media members, in which Tim McMahon from ESPN asked him about the firing of Casey Smith, Jeremy Holsapple, Casey Spangler, longtime members of the medical staff for the Dallas Mavericks, friends with Luka and all this stuff. Nico goes very strongly to defend the new hires, to defend the crew that he brought in. And this is where he brought in Keith Belton. He brought in Johan Billsborough, if I'm saying that correctly. Sorry if I'm not. He did keep Deon Calhoun at the time. That's when Calhoun got promoted once Casey Smith was like let go. What a weird situation all of that and stuff was. And if you remember, go back and read Tim McMahon's reporting, Mark Stein's reporting in his Substack, which you should already be subscribed to. But, you know, there was tension between Casey Smith, Nico Harrison. Casey Smith was in that inner circle back for a long time. It was Casey Smith, Mark Cuban, Rick Carlisle, Donnie Nelson, Keith Grant, Michael Finley was in there. And then Dirk comes on as an advisor once he's done. And like, these are the people making decisions for the Mavericks. Casey Smith goes over to Slovenia whenever Luka is signing his extension and everything. He was close with Luka, and he lets Casey Smith go. He lets these other guys like Holsapple and Spangler go. Brings in his own guys, Billsborough, Belton. He keeps Deon Calhoun for the time being. He felt like that crew originally, Casey Smith and Holsapple, Spangler, and those guys, he felt like they were kind of enablers, right? I think Tim McMahon put that in his piece, that they were wanting some changes in Luka's lifestyle. They kind of enabled it. And yeah, he's like, all right, well, I don't care about any of your tenure with the Mavs. I'm going to replace you, bring my guys in. The Mavericks obviously go to the finals last year against the Celtics. And then, bam, there is this year. There's a ton of injuries this past season. There's a lot of tension, and it all blew up around Dereck Lively's injury to his foot, the stress fracture. What, when can he come back? What's the timeline? You can read all the different reporting with Stein and McMahon that there was this huge blow up, Belton, Billsboro, on what is what's going on with Lively. Should he get another scan? He just went through this practice workload and stuff, but then and he's ready to come back. Oh, let's send him to another scan. They just couldn't get on the same page. There was all this frustration. He ends up obviously getting a scan. He has the stress fracture, and when Nico Harrison is asked about it, obviously none of that came to light. All behind the scenes stuff, but it was enough for the HR department to get involved with the Mavericks. And then when it's brought up at the secret roundtable, Nico says, "Man, that actually shows their strength." That just shows how strong and elite that they are, that they can have differing opinions, and they caught it before he got back out on the floor, and it could have been a much worse injury. Man, that's one way to look at it. I wish I could look like that's a different level of like glass half full. Then he goes on to say they are elite, but then he says at that line, he says about Casey Smith. McMahon was asking about Casey Smith. He's like, man, it's like a joke that you're asking me about him. He's been gone for 2 years. We went to the finals last year. No one was asking about our medical staff then. He says they are better. Talking about his crew, Belton, Billsboro, and those guys. This crew is better than the past. This was after the season. This season. This was 23 days ago. Yesterday, Nico fires Keith Belton, fires Dion Calhoun, leaves Billsboro in place, yes, but he fires a guy in Keith Belton that he just said 23 days ago is better than the past crew. That says is elite, that it shows their strength that they could do this. I mean, we could go all day, especially on the certification part with Belton, and that, ESPN report on that he didn't have the proper certification to be in the role they did with the Mavericks. But this is such an important role with the team. I mean, like I said, Casey Smith was part of like the main decision makers with the Mavs. This means something to players. Like, players work with the medical staff day in, day out at crazy hours of the day. It was kind of like tongue in cheek laughing about Jalen Brunson a few weeks ago, but it was right around this time Brunson was coming back from his injury in New York. And who does he credit in the press conference? He credits Casey Smith, who's working for the Knicks now. He credits Heather Mao, who's working for the Knicks now, that used to work with Casey Smith and stuff in Dallas. That was, she left. And it's like, these players, they have a relationship, and it means something of who the medical staff is in Dallas. Did the Billsboro guy just went out? And it's like, if him and Belton were button heads, and it's like, did he just like went out? He's still there. But whether it's important or not, it is important. But let's take all of that out of the way for a second. You still had your general manager, Nico Harrison, who said 23 days ago that they're elite, that shows their strength, that they're just better. And 23 days later, he's firing the same people who he was talking about, how he's trying to adamantly defend and adamantly hype up. If there was a chance that you were going to make changes, or you were going to fire somebody or multiple people on that staff, you can answer that question in a way of saying, hey, we're evaluating everybody after this season, and we're always trying to get better. That's a pretty simple answer, right? It feels like it's something we've heard before. But to go that far and to defend them and talk about how great they are, and then to fire one of them, at least. But I think there were other names and stuff too, according to McMahon and Stein, that got let go. And miss me with the, man, credit to Nico for making a move. Credit, he saw where they need. Dude, you can't create the problem and then fix the problem and deserve credit for it. Sounds like, yeah, never mind. All right, coming up, let's talk about some NBA draft stuff. let's not talk about Nico Harrison. Let's not talk about the changes, but the Mavericks did make changes, and we'll see what other changes comes with their medical staff and all of that. Let's talk about Ace Bailey, VJ Edgecombe, and if the Mavericks land at number 2 in the NBA draft lottery on May 12th, what do they do? Do they take one of those guys or do they explore some trades? Let's talk about all of that in just a little bit. This podcast is brought to you by our friends at Upwork. Scaling your business requires the right expertise at the right time. With Upwork, you can find specialized freelancers in marketing, development, design, and more, experts ready to help you take your business to the next level. Upwork gives business flexibility by connecting them with top freelance talent across multiple industries, including IT, AI, web development, and marketing. Whether you need extra hands for a project or a long-term partner, Upwork makes hiring simple and affordable. And you know what? It's cost effective. Instead of hiring full-time, Upwork helps find affordable, top-tier freelancers to scale business efficiency. Visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's UPWORK.com, Upwork.com to connect with top talent and grow your business today. This podcast is also brought to you by our longtime friends at Game Time. There's nothing like an atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. Man, imagine if Bill Simmons was at that playoff game in Boston yesterday. It's electric in an arena, and with Game Time, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting. Man, they get you with all those fees. Game Time makes it easy, fast, and easy to get playoff tickets, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer. That's the time to buy right there. The last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. We're all about saving money. The all-in pricing means no surprise fees at the checkout. It's worth it just for that. How many times do we get surprised by fees when we're checking out with tickets online? It makes you mad, but not with Game Time. What you see is what you pay. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA. Am I doing a spelling bee right now? For $20 off your first thing. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
All right. Let's keep going. I think Nick just landed back in Dallas. He was visiting some family and stuff out of state. And if you missed yesterday's pod, I did a podcast on what if the Mavericks landed at 2. Talked about Dylan Harper, how good Dylan Harper is. He's really good. What it would be like if the Mavs landed at 2 and we're freaking out on a Locked On Mavs episode right after the lottery. He gets to learn from Kyrie and all this stuff, but also talked about trades that they could potentially seek out for Dylan Harper. This is where it gets really interesting, is at the 3 spot. So NBA draft lottery happens on May 12th. That's coming up next week, in which the draft order will be determined. Pretty much the Cooper Flag sweepstakes. We'll see who gets Cooper Flag on lottery night there on the 12th. And the Mavericks have the 11th best odds. We've done a pod, and Nick did a pod the other day. What if they land at 1 and they get Cooper Flag? I did the pod yesterday about what if they land at 2. And then today's episode, or the last 2 segments here of the podcast, because Nico decided to fix some of his own mistakes, or try to, is about if they land at 3. Now, it's a top 2 person draft for the most part. Everybody has Flag, Harper, top 2 picks in the draft. This is where it varies a little bit. If you go back a few months ago, Ace Bailey had this spot locked in. Now he's like moved around. Some people have VJ Edgecombe at the 3 spot. And this is where I want to talk about both guys for a second. If Dallas lands at 3, do they just take one of these guys and be done with it? Or do they entertain some trade officers? What in the world? Let's talk about each for a second. So Ace Bailey played at Rutgers, teammate with Dylan Harper. He's 19. He's 6'10". All right. Or he's going to be 19 at the draft. He's 6'10". He's massive. You watch him in high school. You watch him in college. You're like, dude, this dude is every bit of 6'10", 6'11". And he plays on the wing, right? Like he's one of the hardest players to kind of like figure out right now, because if you had to make a list of like the highest upside, he's right near at the top with Cooper Flagg, because what he can do on the offensive side of the ball at 6'10" is absolutely unreal. Like, if you go and look at some of the stuff that he could pull off, some of them are crazy dumb shots, but you're like, man, that was a dumb shot, but man, you made it. Like, this is insane. Some of the, like, just the pull-ups, the contested shots, when you think he's like trapped and he can't get out. I mean, he just like kind of goes up with it, some fadeaways, and you just see him pull off some of these shots at this size, and you're like, how can he not be like the top pick in the draft? He's 6'10" doing this. But there's more to it than that, right? Like, I mean, you look at a guy like Bailey and you look at his decision making, especially, it's two different positions, but you compare him to like a Dylan Harper, and then you watch Ace Bailey. I don't think it helped him that you see Harper, who's like this floor general point guard who's going to come into an NBA team and like run their team for the next decade, and just is really smart and great with the ball, compared to Ace Bailey. And there's a few times when you watch some of these Rucker games that you're like, can you not dribble right now? Or what was that decision? The decision making and maturity on the court definitely has room to grow with that. But when you look at his skill set and stuff for that size, you're like, wow, I mean, what? It's just insane. Like, is somebody going to fall in love with the upside of an Ace Bailey and say, you know what? The ceiling for him is super high, especially on the offensive side of the ball. He has some good moments defensively and stuff too. He's not like a wash on the defensive side of the ball at all. But it's the offensive side and the shots he pulls off that makes you like, whoa, okay. So it's like, what is he in the league? Is he a Michael Porter Jr.? Is he Jabari Smith? Is he Kyle Kuzma if he was taking supplements? I don't love the Kuzma one. Brandon Ingram gives me a little bit of like comp stuff. I kind of get it with the Brandon Ingram. He has a little bit more muscle on his body than Ingram, because Ingram could be mistaken for like a number 2 pencil. But as far as the like offensive side and some of the shots that he takes and makes, I kind of get reminded of Ingram with that. But it's the Michael Porter Jr., which there's so much stuff with that, because there's so many times I'm watching Denver games, I'm like, how's he making $30-some million a year? But could Ace Bailey be that on a really good team? I think that would be an incredible role for him. He probably wants something bigger than that. Then you look at VJ Edgecombe. He's at Baylor. He's 19, 6'5". Some of my favorite tape of him is not in college, but when he played on the Bahama national team, he's playing with Buddy Hield, DeAndre Ayton, Eric Gordon, and some others. And this dude is straight up getting buckets. I mean, he looks like an NBA player out there. At times, he was looking better than some of these NBA guys. He played a different type of role, it felt like, at Baylor at times, but one of the most athletic, if not the most athletic player in this draft. He has some highlights, some plays that you're just going to like shake your head like, how what did you just do right now? Just insane bounce and explosiveness, athleticism. There's a little bit of like unleash him side though. I've said this over the years plenty of times on this podcast that it felt like we all had the football player, the high school running back that you had in high school that also played on the basketball team, but he wasn't. You kind of just unleashed him on the court, and then you had some really good moments, but you had some crazy moments too, where he's like knocking people down and like just running past the goal and like all this stuff. He has a little bit of just unleash him on the court, because there's some moments where it feels like his like brain doesn't catch up with his like body, is almost like a deer or something. I don't know, but I'm not worried about that at all. I love Edgecombe. I would honestly take him over Ace Bailey, I think. And then when you come for the Mavericks and it's like, all right, if they land at 3 and it's like one of these guys, it's going to be probably one of these guys. There's not another guy near the top. I do like Trey Johnson a lot. And I think the Mavericks would like or do like Trey Johnson a lot. And I think they would be targeting him if they, land lower in the draft or at the spot that they're most likely going to land. Cause he just fits a lot of what Dallas is trying to go after or get. But if they're at the 3 spot and they're like, hey, we're going to take one of these guys, I would take VJ Edgecombe. I know that the upside with Ace Bailey is there, but I think Edgecombe, it's going to take a little bit. He's not completely raw. He's going to be in the rotation if Dallas took him. But man, it would be a lot of fun. And everything I've heard about him, Obviously, Baylor has an assistant coach right now with Drew and Melvin Hunt. They used to be, Mavericks assistant coach, and I've got to text him a few times about Edgecombe and the type of player he is, and raving about him across the board. So I'm a big fan of Edgecombe a lot. And if Dallas landed at 3 and took him to be a part of this team moving forward over the next few years in Nico's timeline, but also in the future past Nico, I would be completely down for that. Sign me up for that. But the real question is, if you land at 3, you're not getting Cooper Flag, you're not getting Dylan Harper. Do you try to trade down? Is there a team that is still willing to give you enough stuff to move up to get one of these guys? It's not going to be the same type of package you're going to get for a Dylan Harper that I talked about yesterday. But is it still enough for you if you're Dallas and you're sitting there saying Edgecombe might take a little bit more time? Ace Bailey, man, I don't know about the position stuff, and the upside would be great, but what if we move down a few spots, picked up some more assets, and still got a good young player to add to this core? If we still got a Trey Johnson, but also picked up some other stuff to go with that, maybe that's some Dallas to entertain. So I want to talk about a few of those options coming up in just a little bit. This podcast is brought to you by our friends at Open Phone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber or a service provider. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not, because we don't have patience at all. You moved on. That's why you need Open Phone. Open Phone is the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. Open Phone lets you manage business calls and texts from a single app. Just one app on your phone. You can do all of this, and you can combine your team and stuff with it. I think with the shared inbox, it sounds awesome to use with your team. Open Phone is offering listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/lockedonnba. That's openphone.com/lockedonnba. If you have existing numbers with another service, Open Phone will port them over at no extra charge. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers.
Shut it down! Let's go home!
All right. I got to take a drink for a second. Hold on. It's like the least professional thing you can do on a podcast. But you know what? I just did it. Don't tell Nick. So what type of trade package if you move down? Now, once again, Dallas has the 11th best odds. They're most likely going to land at the 11th spot on lottery night when the ping pong balls are done and all the stuff. They're most likely going to be at the 11th spot. But what if they land at 3? Some of the other teams behind them stays in the same order. What are some packages that makes you think about it? If the Mavericks are not completely 100% sold on a VJ Edgecombe or a Ace Bailey. I think Brooklyn is just biting at the bit. I mean, they're just begging to be in the top 3 of this draft. All right. I think they will do anything and everything to try to get Cooper Flag or Dylan Harper. They're so desperate to have a young piece to be kind of like the face of their franchise moving forward that, man, I think getting Harper or Flag would be amazing, but even getting an Ace Bailey or a VJ Edgecombe would be amazing for them too. They're sitting there with the 6th best odds. So if Brooklyn if they're saying, you know what, we want to take the swing on Ace Bailey and see what the upside is, he could be a star in the future at that size with his offense. If they're sitting there at 6 and they say, all right, they have another first round pick later on in the draft. If they say, hey, we'll give you 6, the pick later on, and then we'll give you another, they have some picks because of some of the trades when they broke up their big 3, whatever you want to call it. We'll give you unprotected first. So you get an unprotected future first. You get the 6th pick. So you're moving down just 3 spots, and you get another first round pick later on in the first round. Do you do that if you're Dallas? Is it worth moving back 3 spots for that? So then you can move back 3 spots, maybe theoretically get a Trey Johnson from Texas at that point, and then you're walking away from the draft with Trey Johnson, another pick in later on the first round. So you're adding 2 rookies to mini camp, and then you have a future first round pick, and you have that in just 1. future Lakers pick that you can dangle in trades or keep it and all of that stuff. I don't know. Not a sexy trade, but something I'm like, oh, okay, I can see that making sense for somebody. San Antonio sitting there with the 8th pick. They're also sitting with the 14th pick because they own another first-round pick in this draft. So 8 and 14, 2 lottery picks, obviously in the back half of the lottery. So what if they call up and they're like, hey, we have Wemby, we have De'Aaron Fox, we have Stephon Castle, who just won Rookie of the Year, we have Devin Vassell, we have like this young core that's moving forward, and we want to add one of these pieces around them. We want to add either an Ace Bailey next to Wemby there in the front court, which would be crazy to think about, another scorer, 6'10", all the stuff. Or they look at it and say, hey, we really want to add a VJ Edgecombe that is going to be on the wing with a Stephon Castle. I love VJ's, a lot of his defensive upside. To have a wing core, young core of Vassell, VJ Edgecombe, and Stephon Castle. I mean, that's just nasty work right there if they did that. So what if they called up and said, hey, we'll give you 8, 14, and Jeremy Sohan? Does Dallas do that? So you're bringing Sohan into Sohan. My bad. You bring a Sohan into Dallas. You get a bigger wing. You get another like 4. Those free throws are just ugly. But you get pick 18. You get pick 8. So you're moving down 5 spots at that point. But you're also picking up 14. So you're getting 2 picks there in the back half of the lottery with Jeremy Sohan. Do you do that trade? I don't know. Thinking about it. I do like Edgecombe a lot. What if Portland calls? Says, hey, we heard that you're needing a Kyrie fill in the gap guy, or maybe even a guy that can play with Kyrie at times when Kyrie comes back, or maybe even like a 6-man type of guy that can get buckets and help you with your offense until Kyrie gets back. We have some guys in the backcourt that, hey, we have some young guys in Scoot Henderson. We have Shaedon Sharpe. We have some other guys. So what if we give you Anthony Simons and the 10th pick to move up to the 3rd pick in the draft? So Portland could look at it and say, hey, we want to add Ace Bailey or VJ Edgecombe to Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe and Denny Avdia and stuff in Portland, this young core in Portland. It feels like Simons is expendable. Feels like there's rumors stuff out there that they could be trading Simons this offseason. And if you're Dallas, obviously Simons makes around $25 million. He's still pretty young. You'd have to match that, salary wise. But adding Anthony Simons to the team, especially, I mean, he would be an incredible offensive option when Kyrie is, rehabbing and stuff to come back. And you're dropping down 7 spots to the 10th spot. Maybe you still get a Trey Johnson. Maybe you get somebody else in that spot and you're walking away from the draft with Anthony Simons and the 10th pick in the draft, another rookie. I could hear that. To be honest. What if Chicago calls? What if Chicago calls and says, all right, Kobe White in 12 for the 3rd pick? Guys, I'm all in on trying to get Kobe White this offseason, if you haven't noticed. I think he is the perfect he's not like too good to where, he could just be insane. You're like, well, crap, he has to play with Kyrie at this point. And it's just like awkward when Kyrie gets healthy and he's starting to come back and all the stuff. He's not too good to do that, but he's not bad. And I think he's a good basketball player. He has size. He can fit next to Kyrie and all the stuff. Is it enough though to say Kobe White in 12 to move up to 3? I think I want something else with it, right? Like, is that being too greedy to say I want something else with Kobe White and pick 12? If I'm going to move back from 3 to 12, if I'm going to move back 9 spots, I want more than Kobe White, because Kobe White's obviously has 1 year left in his deal and you got to figure out the long-term contract and all the stuff. But is there something else that they could throw in there with Kobe White that you're adding, whether it's a future first, whether it's another young piece or something like that, to where it makes up the options for you to move back 9 spots? I'm definitely more open to it at the 3 spot of moving down than I am the 2 spot. I think the 2 spot, I think the trade options are that are going to be worth it is kind of limited unless you just get blown away. I think you just take Dylan Harper and he'd be an incredible fit in Dallas. Talked about it all in yesterday's podcast. But I think if you're landing at 3, I would be really happy if they took Edgecombe. I think even if they took an Ace Bailey, you see the vision. Whoever takes Ace Bailey, I can tell you like right now what that Locked On episode for that team is going to be about post draft lottery or post draft. It's going to be all about this offensive potential and posting clips and highlights of like, how is this guy not number 1? This is crazy and all this stuff. Dallas took VJ Edgecombe. I mean, to have him on the wing at this 6'6", super athletic, explosive. I mean, he would put a whole different definition of highlights in Dallas as far as like high flying, playing above the rim. He has this two-way potential that I think is incredible. And with Edgecombe, I didn't say this a while ago. Like, what's his comp? I think I look at players like I really like Victor Oladipo comp for him. It feels like, some of the young crowd, you might not remember that little Indiana span there of a few years where Oladipo was incredible before he had some really bad injuries. But is he close to like a Shaedon Sharpe? I feel like I want more from Shaedon Sharpe right now besides the once every 2 month crazy dunk highlight that everybody freaks out. I'm like, all right, is he actually good at playing basketball or is he just a jumper? I think he's good. I just want to see it more. I hope he's better than Derrick Jones Jr., but can he be that type of player? I think that's the floor for Edgecombe, but I like the Oladipo route a little bit more. And what's the like highest of high ceilings for a VJ Edgecombe? I think it's like a Jaylen Brown. That's like if everything hits, you go to the perfect situation, he gets empowered. Over the years, remember when Jaylen Brown got picked out of Cal? It was kind of controversial. It was like, whoa, it's kind of a reach. But over the years, he slowly started to get better and better and better. And now he's literally one of the best two-way guys in the whole league, even though they couldn't hold the lead against New York again. So it's like highest of high ceilings for Edgecombe, Jaylen Brown. I think Oladipo's like in the middle. The lowest of the floors is like a Derrick Jones Jr. type. So I think if Dallas took one of those guys, you see the vision, you see the path for it, you see why they do it to add a top pick in the draft. But I think there's a lot of wiggle room there for them to move down maybe a few spots with a Brooklyn, with a San Antonio, with a Portland, pick up a win now type of asset, but also get maybe a future asset at the same time and add a rookie this year. Like if you could do that, I'm listening and for all of that. Guys, we'll be back tomorrow night. On Thursday night, Nick, myself, we'll be back in action together talking who knows what. I'll look what's on our schedule. And then the lotteries next week. That's going to be a lot of fun. Then we can have mock drafts. I've been doing so much draft stuff. I'm just loving this right now. And I have some guys I'm honing in on for the Mavs at the 11th spot if they land at 11. Guys, it's been real. We'll be back tomorrow night. Sign up for our Locked On Mavs Insider program, our Substack. Make sure you do that. We're going to have some fun stuff coming your